What is up, everyone? JD here. I hope you're all doing well today. Today, I want to talk about budget alternatives to the Benchmade Bugout. Now, this one here is the base model version of the Bugout. It comes in S30V and it comes with Gravity handles from the factory. These are the Flytanium titanium scales available at flytanium.com. I did anodize these myself. They came raw. I picked them up last year during a holiday sale for a phenomenal price. Picked them up and immediately anodized them. So that's why they look this way. Now, let's talk quickly about this lock mechanism. This is a crossbar lock. The way the crossbar lock works is it actually engages the spine of the knife on this flat portion right here, and that's what keeps it locked in place. It has two omega springs that hook over top of the crossbar, come down low, and then they anchor into the scales here. And what they're doing is when you pull them back, are being compressed down, and then when you let go, the springs push them back into place, and that's what holds the lock into place. The fact that it's fully engaged, 100% of the spine of the knife is part of what lends to the strength. It is locked in tight, and it does give significant strength and durability to this knife. Especially impressive because it is such a small knife and a very friendly EDC, coming in even with these scales at 2.8 ounces. Featherweight. Now there are other things to the Bugout that are very impressive in the way that it's built. I would recommend, if you're looking at a crossbar lock and you want something that's affordable, you can get this, or you can get the SIG K320, which is around $130. Both of these have S30V. Both come with plastic scales. Now, if you're looking for more belly, more blade, and more of a user knife that is meant to be used hard, a hard use knife, I guess I should say, pardon me, this is going to be more in your wheelhouse, especially if you're using like gloves and things of that nature, where you want something that has nice ergonomics and is going to be very comfortable for long periods of time of use. I like this one a lot. And again, both of these have S30V. I do have the coated blade, but if you want an uncoated, you can get that exclusively from Knife Center. I don't think they have any in stock, but they do get them back in, and they do allow pre-order, so you can reserve yours for when the inventory replenishes. It'll automatically go out. S30V is a very tough blade. It has good corrosion resistance, and it has excellent edge retention, even better than D2. Having said that, if you're on a budget, you can't afford it, or you're just getting into knives and you can't justify spending this much money on a knife, there are some interesting options. Let me go ahead and bring those out. We're going to leave the Bugout out here as a size reference so you can get an idea just what size they are. Now, one thing that I forgot to mention, if you do need a sub 3-inch version of this knife, they do have a mini Bugout available, and it's a little bit more affordable, but still very comfortable and works surprisingly well for the size of the knife. So first up, I want to talk about the Gonzo Firebird FB727. This has a 3-inch 440C blade steel, 4.25-inch G10 handles, overall length 7.25 inches, and it is coming in at 2.9 ounces. So you can see this is a sub 2-ounce knife when you get the FRN handles, but if you get the G10 and you get the stainless steel liners, this does feel surprisingly durable. Now, you may be saying to yourself, this looks pretty familiar. If you're familiar with the Ontario Rat 2, this is very similarly styled, but it is a little bit bigger. It has the same archway and jimping in the exact same spot, thumb studs same spot. Blade shape is exactly the same as the Ontario Rat 2. It's just this has a taller blade on it, and it has a longer flat grind to it. Some of the other differences: doesn't have as much hardware. It has a more shallow cutout than the Rat 2 does. But this one does have a crossbar lock. It has very proven 440C blade steel that is very good for an entry-level budget knife. Now, the thing that I will say about this particular crossbar lock is the action on it is not as smooth. It did come tight out of the box, and I did have to loosen it up some, and even loosening it, it's still pretty locked up. Doesn't have very much play, but it is a little bit stiffer. The springs are also a little bit stiffer, which makes it hard to operate the crossbar lock. And because they didn't knock it down any to get to them, you do have to not only squeeze, but you do feel a little discomfort operating it versus the Bugout. Now, this one does have milled out steel liners to help reduce the weight, and it does have a reversible pocket clip that is not deep carry. It prioritized the lanyard hole, which I think is a little bit of a disappointment. Ergonomically, this one's okay. It is not necessarily my favorite, but I have very large hands and I hang off the back of the knife, so it does feel a little uncomfortable for me personally, but you may have different experience if you have smaller hands. This one also, of all the ones that I'm going to show you, has one of my least favorite blade shapes. Now, it does work. It has plenty of belly so that you can push cut through and get your tasks that require heavy cuts. Hard push through cuts are going to work really well, but the tip way up high, so if you have to do any detail work or if you need anything where you need to get the tip out, it requires a little bit of an awkward angle for me. The branding on here does have a lot of writing on here. It does tell you what the steel is on the bottom right corner. It tells you the model number on the left bottom corner. Tells you it was made by Gonzo, and it tells you the name of the knife all in one. The aesthetics are not really for me. I don't really like the whole flame thing, but that I think is personal preference. That's going to be up to you. So that's going to be the first knife that I'm going to recommend out of the budget-oriented crossbar lock knife. Next up, and a knife that I do really actually like a lot, is going to be the Sativian ST124. This one has a 3.35 inch D2 steel blade. Really like that blade shape. It's really nice aesthetically, but again, it's going to have that same issue that I just mentioned about the tip being up really high. You have to come up really high to get to it. But I think it's a very interesting blade shape in spite of that. I really think it's quite cool. The lines on it and the cuts on it are very nice. It does have that ramp right here, just like it does on the Gonzo for jimping and for your more precise work. Like if you're trying to do something precise, but if you're trying to get through your push cuts, you're still in a really good spot for that. It's a little bit thicker of a geometry, but they do a nice job getting it thin down here behind the edges. I don't think I mentioned the G10 handles are 4.53 inches, and this overall is 7.87 inches. All of these knives fall into that wheelhouse of that size that I really like for an EDC, the 7.25, right up to just at 8 inches. Really, really nice for a friendly EDC size carry. Not that you can't EDC over 8 inches, you totally can, but I think you're going to need a good belt and you're going to need some shorts that you don't mind having the weight in the pockets on. If you're rocking gym shorts, you're not going to really carry any of these, I don't think. Maybe the Bugout, because that one again is coming in under 3 ounces, so it is ultra lightweight, but probably none of these. You might want to go get yourself a baby banter for your gym shorts. 3.92 ounces on this knife. It has really good ergonomics. They actually did chamfer down so that you can get to the crossbar studs here really well. It does have decent action, but it also runs into that same issue where if you're closing it and you don't get it right, it's going to stop way out here. You're just going to need to be careful with your fingers on the knife and make sure that you're prepared to close it. It does have real tough resistance because of the stronger springs too. You can hear it when it closed. I had to give it a lot of effort. The bearings on this one just feel a little bit smoother on the Gonzo, and I think part of that is going to be the fact that it has a bigger, heavier blade, so it does seem to want to move when you get the momentum going a little bit further into the close when you're using it that way. But I will say again, the studs on both the thumb studs and the crossbar are not very comfortable. They feel, I don't know, they just feel not pokey because they're not cut sharp, but they have like they don't have enough jimping around it, I guess, to kind of break it up like it does on the Bugout, so it doesn't feel quite as comfortable, or maybe the angle's not as good. You can see this has milling on the inside. They did a better job on the pocket clip than the Gonzo, prioritizing that for the deep carry clip. You can see you're not going to have much knife left, and they did a good job. Even though they cut through for the lanyard, which I guess in essence would reduce weight, they put it up high so that you can carry this deeply. So I do like this one a little bit more than the Gonzo, but the Gonzo, I think if you're looking for something that is a little bit smaller in size to carry, is going to get you closer to that than the ST124, because this one's actually going to be a little bit longer than the Bugout. So these are my first two recommendations for knives that are under $30, if you can believe that, which is, you know, incredible at this price point. But again, at that $30, from the aesthetic standpoint, it does look like a cheap knife because of all the chrome parts that's used on this. Now, again, that is subjective to me. That might not make a hill of beans to you, and that's fine that if it doesn't, but I'm just saying for me, it does look a little bit cheaper because it just looks like the finishes on here are not quite as nice as the blacked out finish that you see on the Bugout. The Bugout, to me, especially because I put the titanium scales on here, just feel a little bit more premium to me. And after operating the two of these, you can just tell the spring is heavier, but the action, even with the ceramic bearings versus the phosphor bronze washers on the Bugout just feels smoother. There's just something about the way that this is tuned that feels super duper smooth to me. Having said that, is there an option that gets you even closer to that at that under $30 price point? Well, actually there is. A knife that I discovered on accident. I totally thought I was ordering something else. It was late at night. I wasn't paying close enough attention, and I ended up with this. The Free Tiger FT 2103, which has a 3.35 inch D2 steel blade, 4.21 inch G10 handles, overall length 7.87 inches, and it is coming in at 3.6 ounces. Very lightweight knife. Branding on here is done pretty good too. They tuck it in close to that thumb stud so it's not down on the blade. They do have the Free Tiger logo, unfortunately, on the blade here. This one here, I think, gets you the closest to the blade shape of the Bugout. It does actually bring the tip down lower. So when you see here and you compare the knives here, it just gets it a little bit lower, not by much. But that's one of the things that I love about the Bugout is when you go to do that utility work, you don't have to get up as high as you do on these other two knives. Now, this knife, and I've said it before in the review, it makes me think of what would happen if the Wee Banter got together with the Benchmade Bugout and they had a baby. This part of the knife, for me, reminds me a lot of the Banter. It has that very no nonsense, no frill, squared off look, just a little bit of cutout knockdown here, which actually ergonomically is surprisingly comfortable. I'm able to get a full 4-finger grip. It actually falls in the perfect spot here to where my pinky can sit on this whole piece comfortably. And the thumb lands in a really good spot, or if I'm doing push cuts, still gets me really close to the blade's edge, has plenty of flat surface to get through the material, and the tip is in a really good spot. It is a nice, thin, slicey grind, full flat grind all the way up to the midsection here. And even though it is flattened out here, it's still really thin behind the edge, surprisingly sharp edge coming straight from the factory. Again, now I had this for a couple weeks and I haven't done a lot of hard use with it. I tested it on some cardboard and ran it through some paper and opened some packages and stuff. Really nice. Now this one here has the smoothest action out of all of the three of these, in my opinion. It is perfectly consistent with the deployment and closing of this knife. It does not have any of those spots where if you hit funny you have to fight it hard. It just closes very easily. So I feel like they did a better job of the pivot to crossbar location and making it work so that it is very, very smooth, surprisingly smooth and lightweight. So if you're determined that you don't want to spend more than $30 and you want a budget knife that has a crossbar lock, you have a few options, and my recommendation of the three would be actually the Free Tiger FT 2103. That one just really surprised me. Having said all of that, I'm not a big fan of D2. It is really, really good for edge retention, but it is not super strong. It is prone to chipping, and it is very prone to corrosion. It is not very good for corrosion resistance. If you don't want to spend more than $30, if you don't care about the crossbar lock, my recommendation continues to be the Reich P801. You get 14C28N steel frame lock bar. Really nice knife. And if you don't want to spend your money overall overseas for a knife that is under $28, get yourself a Buck 110. They are made in the US, 420C with a hollow grind, very lightweight, super comfortable, and a really nice size to carry. So those are just, again, my alternative options for you guys out there, depending on what you want and what you're looking for. Hopefully you enjoyed this video and it helped you, gave you some ideas and options if you wanted to try out a crossbar lock. I still don't think any of these are going to be a replacement for our Benchmade Bugout. It's just that good. The weight is awesome. The phosphor bronze washers operating like they are on ceramic bearings are just incredible. The ergonomics are great. It's so thin and slicey, guys. It's going to be hard to get that experience. These needed the ceramic bearings to get you that glassy action. Benchmade has been able to do that with the access lock and phosphor bronze washers in a really interesting price point. I hope this video has helped you. If you enjoyed it, do me a favor, leave a like. Consider subscribing if you're not already subscribed. If you are, you're wonderful. Thank you for your support. I appreciate it so much. I hope all of you have a fantastic week. Until next time, peace.